After Little May accidentally killed the little kitten, she was severely beaten by her mother, Lisa. Who would have expected that this brutal punishment would completely enrage Little May? Fortunately, Little May held back from dealing a fatal blow and merely snatched the keys from her mother's neck. But just as she excitedly opened the door ready to run toward freedom, Lisa suddenly appeared behind her and knocked her unconscious with a heavy strike. To prevent her from using her spikes to hurt anyone again, Lisa made a terrifying decision. She tightly bound Little May's hands and feet to the operating table, pulled out a scalpel, and forcefully severed her tail. Coincidentally, this gruesome scene was witnessed by Jack, who had just hurried home. Seeing the pitiful Little May strapped to the table, Jack's heart broke. He never expected his wife to be so ruthless. Once Lisa left, Jack quickly helped untie Little May's bonds. Out of gratitude, Little May threw herself into his arms and planted a solid kiss on him. This startled Jack, who quickly pushed her away and warned her that such behavior was inappropriate. But seeing Little May's wronged and pitiful expression, improper thoughts began to cloud Jack's mind. He completely failed to realize that this intimate moment was witnessed by Lisa, who had just returned. Unable to believe her eyes and emotionally shattered, Lisa immediately rushed out. Jack wanted to chase after her to explain, but things had escalated to a point that no woman could easily handle. However, after suffering through the night and finally calming down, Lisa slowly realized that the blame couldn't fall entirely on Jack. If she hadn't been so relentlessly stubborn about raising Little May in the first place, this tragedy would never have occurred. After much internal struggle, the couple reached a unified decision. They had to eliminate Little May and put a definitive stop to this evil experiment. But what they didn't anticipate was that upon returning to the barn, they would find Little May dead under bizarre circumstances. Although the cause was unclear, the two dug a hole right there and quietly buried her. But as Lisa was sorting through Little May's belongings, she discovered a box filled with hand-drawn portraits of herself. Though slightly bewildered, she didn't think too deeply about it, assuming Little May was already gone for good. Unexpectedly, their company boss suddenly arrived at their doorstep. He had already suspected the couple's secret project and demanded they hand over the experimental specimen. Little did anyone know, a tremendous danger was quietly closing in. The next second was even more terrifying. Before anyone could process the shock, they saw the boss brutally murdered, his body left hanging from a tree. Immediately after, they made a horrifying discovery. Little May was not dead at all. Instead, she had transformed into a male. Who could have guessed that this creature was a sequential hermaphrodite? What was even more terrifying was that the new male monster was far more brutal and bloodthirsty than the original Little May. In the blink of an eye, it snatched away a colleague. Witnessing this, Jack immediately led his wife in a frantic chase, but while passing a lake, Jack was suddenly dragged underwater by a bizarre, monstrous force. Fortunately, Jack was tough enough to break the surface shortly after, but the danger was far from over. In the next second, the male monster erupted from the water, locking its sinister gaze deadly on Lisa. Realizing she was the target, Lisa abandoned her husband and fled for her life. At a critical moment, she ducked into a dense thicket of bushes, but the cunning monster played a terrifying game of hide and seek with her. In her panic, Lisa accidentally crashed into a tree trunk and fell headfirst to the ground. Seizing the opportunity, the monster pinned her down, causing Lisa to struggle frantically in absolute terror. But against the creature's overwhelming physical strength, her resistance was entirely useless. Just then, Jack, having recovered, heard Lisa's desperate cries for help. Seeing his wife being assaulted ignited a fierce rage within him. Grabbing a sharp tree branch, he lunged forward and impaled the monster. But the creature's hide was ridiculously thick. It forcefully pulled the branch out of its own flesh. Before Jack could react, the monster tackled him to the ground. At this crucial moment, Lisa grabbed a heavy rock and smashed it hard against the monster. But just as she had the chance, the soft-hearted Lisa suddenly couldn't bring herself to deliver the fatal blow. Taking advantage of her hesitation, the sinister monster swung its tail in the chaos and pierced Jack directly through the heart. One might think this gruesome tragedy had finally come to an end, but not long after, Lisa made a devastating discovery. She was pregnant. It turned out she was already carrying